We don't normally do this, but I just wanted to say welcome to November. And while many of you won't love November the way I do, because, well, quite frankly, based on where you live in the world, according to the stats, you don't celebrate Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving is my favorite time of the year. It's my favorite holiday because I get to spend time with my loved ones and the people I care about the most. And even if you can't celebrate, or even if you don't celebrate it, you can celebrate Movember. Movember stands for tackling prostate cancer, testicular cancer, men's mental health, and suicide prevention. And we all have a male in our lives or a man in our lives that we love and want to be around for even longer. So do what you can to help raise awareness and support Movember. The Ugly Inside has done this for the past couple of years. You can actually help them support it by going to mobro.co/theuglyInside. The link is in the show notes. And by the way, I am growing a mustache for Movember. I am going to ruin my family pictures, so hopefully you don't have to. All right? So head over to mobro.co/theuglyInside and help support. All right? Now, let's get to the show.
You're listening to the Southampton Delivery Podcast, a podcast dedicated to the Southampton Football Club and all of the SFC fans.
If you want to have guarantees, you have to buy a washing machine.
Monte with a scooping
We don't lose a match, either we win or we learn. And today we learned.
Отдача, Остин! Все-таки забил!
It's infield to Mane, 25 yards out. Lovely ball for Bella. Onside, 1-0! Buffon shot! Oh my word!
Unbelievable. He ran around the pitch like Bambi on ice. It was very, very embarrassing to watch.
And now, your host, Matt Markstone.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Southampton Delivery Podcast, a podcast and newsletter dedicated to the Southampton Football Club and all of the SFC fans, and available right here on southamptondelivery.com. My name is Matt Markstone. I am the host of the show, and no matter where you are, no matter how you may be listening, whether this is your first time or you've been here before, thanks for making the show a part of your day. I hope that you enjoy it, and I hope that you enjoyed the improved performance that Saints put in, maybe the more disciplined performance that Saints put in over the weekend. Obviously, coming off of a 9-0 defeat a week before to Leicester City and going into a week where you have to play Manchester City twice away, it's not exactly what you would like, but maybe it is. Maybe it's the chance to just drill yourselves defensively, line up in a super low block and force City to pump in crosses to where your 6'7" Danish center back can actually show that he can head the ball and get it away. But anyway, unfortunately for Saints, not going to advance in the Carabao Cup, did not pick up any points. But I think we can take heart from what we saw. I think at least that's my take on it. We will see what the guys from St. Mary's Musings have to say about it as well, because both Jake Hughes and Gunn will be here. You can follow them on Twitter at St. Mary's Musings, at JJHughes_ and at @A_Gunzy. And we're here to talk about the matches, the games, and what's going on kind of behind the scenes. And we don't always agree on everything that goes in. We have different interpretations of questions. I think I'm wrong there. We have different interpretations of the match and things like that. So we will talk about it all. And I hope that you enjoy the conversation. It's always a pleasure to talk to Jake and Alan. So here's the conversation. We'll get to it now. Enjoy. We'll talk to you on the other side. I am delighted this week to be joined on the Southampton Delivery Podcast by the guys from St. Mary's Musings. We go city away twice in a week. We get two guests on the show. So welcome to Jake Hughes and Gunn. Thanks for joining me, guys. I hope you are doing well.
Great to be here. Thank you very much for inviting us both. It's also great to talk to you as ever, Matt, but also great to speak to Alan as well.
Thank you for having us both.
Yeah, absolutely. It's my pleasure. I mean, you guys, I've talked to you both individually before. We exchange messages every once in a while. Alan, I you always make me feel really, really guilty when it comes around for the preview. The sad little crying face emoji sent my direction. I apologize. It's been way too long. So I'm glad you guys are here. And I mean, you guys probably interact quite a bit running St. Mary's Musings. But for those people who don't know, Jake or Alan, either one, I mean, Jake, you do a lot of the writing. Alan, you do a lot of the match reports and Twitter stuff, but you want to tell everybody what they can find if they head over to at St. Mary's Musings or head over to the website as well?
I'll let Jake take that one.
So yeah, St. Mary's Musings, I believe it's stmarysmusings.sbnnation.com. I should know the URL by now, it's been 5 years. But yes, at St. Mary's Musings on Twitter, where you'll find all of Alan's thoughts, well, Saints FC related anyway. So anything you'll see on match day, during the games, or the match reports after, that'll be Alan. Whereas we have some other contributors to the site, and I'll try and write when I can, but that's been sparse lately. Yeah, it's always good to be on the podcast, talk about Saints, hopefully be positive, but we'll see about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And Alan, I should say you were just on the In That Number podcast last week. It sounds like you guys had quite a good time. Talk a little bit about ice hockey and a lot of Leicester City goals, which is fortunately for enough. We don't have to talk about that. I mean, and anybody who said we would have conceded less to City in 2 matches than we did to Leicester City in 1, I think nobody would have believed that, but it is what it is. Ironically enough, the same number of points and progression, so not exactly the best thing ever, but yeah, here we are. So yeah, people can head over to at St. Mary's Musings on Twitter. There's also a Facebook page, and it's at the website is stmarysmusings.sbnation.com, as you mentioned. So people can go there, and if they want to follow you guys, Jake, you're at JJ Hughes, and Alan, you're at @A_Gunzy, and we should say no relation to a certain goalkeeper who probably won't play for a while.
No death threats, please. No death threats.
Yeah,
this is phoning Angus. He's your brother.
Yeah. You might have to put your actual first name in your Twitter handle.
Oh, yeah.
Jeez, man, it's too close for comfort.
Yeah. Gonna change this letter.
But I must admit, I was questioning Alan Gunn's eligibility to be St. Mary's Musings Twitter curator after his brother Angus's exploits in goal.
Yeah, I'm being too nice.
You just got to go for it, man. Like,
he's beautiful. He's a great goalkeeper.
He'll eventually talk to you. He'll eventually talk to you again. Your parents, I don't know. I can't speak for them.
Amazing.
Well, let's kind of jump straight into the Premier League game then, and we'll obviously we didn't get through the Carabao Cup, but that's okay. There was a little bit of improvement there, but I think everybody was looking for a reaction, and I guess for you guys going into the Premier League match this weekend, what were your expectations? And Jake, we'll start with you.
I just didn't want to see another collapse, another mauling, another thrashing. It's easy Saints did let their heads drop massively against Leicester. I just wanted to see signs that hadn't carried on to other games. Against the best team in the country for the last 2 years. So that's all I wanted, really, just to I didn't expect to get a result or anything like that. I just didn't want us to get another pasting.
Alan, what about you?
Yeah, I'm pretty much in the same boat, but I think it was more, I wanted to see that we've learned from what's happened previously. Yes, the reaction is good, but have we started to learn from our mistakes, whether it be mainly defensively? I'll just say it, defensively. Have we learned from our defensive mistakes? And I think for a large spell of yesterday, I thought we had, but there's still some issues, obviously.
Yeah, and I don't know why last week turned into the busiest week of all time in terms of doing stuff for the podcast. We did just the regular podcast that comes out on Tuesdays, and then we did a Patreon-only episode, 2 YouTube videos, a live stream on YouTube, and then the newsletter, which I thought was going to be easy to write and short, and then it turned into this massive thing. And no matter how many times I read it over, there's always an error in there somewhere. So super. Anyway, I think the big thing was just, some sort of reaction and not kind of repeating the same thing. And I think that's the least we could ask for. There were some changes to the Premier League side in terms of who was out there, but I think, we were all expecting some sort of a back five. I was really hoping not to have Højbjerg at left back, but he was there, but I think he did fairly well yesterday. I don't think you can blame him for very much, and I think that was just kind of the type of performance that we need. But then again, I'm also, maybe this is too harsh, but like, I guess it's easier to do that against Manchester City than it is to do that against a team that's not quite as good, where they won't possess the ball and just continuously try to break you down. So you could just set up in this very kind of low block with very narrow kind of space between the lines, and kind of force people to just put crosses in when their striker is Sergio Aguero and probably not going to beat you on a header. So like, I mean, I was pretty impressed with the way the team played, even if I wasn't, all that, excited about the way we were going to set up and probably go after the match.
Yeah, totally agree. I think just having City as an opponent is almost, I don't think it'll be representative of how Saints will be going on for the rest of the season. So you just kind of take that game for what it is. It was us against last year's champions. We've just been beat 9-0 at home. So if you can grab a result any way you can, I'd like to think Ralph would be pragmatic in his approach to try and do that. I think we played not necessarily to our strengths, but we're not going to outplay Man City, are we? So I think all you could ask for or hope for is grab an early goal, see if you can ride out wave after wave of attack, and try and escape with at least a point. And we essentially attempted that, got close to doing that. So I don't think we can read a whole lot into the City game, because, as you say, we can't play like that week in, week out against lesser teams who aren't so good on the ball. But take it for what it is. I felt fairly positive. I don't want to see us play like that each week, and I don't expect to see us play like that each week. But I think that was the right approach for a game like this, coming straight off obviously the Carabao Cup and us getting handily beaten by Leicester City.
I'd like to think it's definitely a step in the right direction of what we're actually trying to accomplish and what Ralph's actually trying to implement. I don't know whether it comes down to personnel. I think it does more so than anything, because I don't think we're playing particularly the way Ralph wants to 100% of the time. And I think that just comes down to personnel, and for what he's done, coming off the back of a 9-0 defeat, having, a decent showing in the Carabao Cup, and then obviously a pretty decent showing yesterday, or I guess Saturday we'll call it. It seems like we're starting to trend in a certain direction upwards, but it's still, like I say, I'm just hoping that we're learning from what we're doing wrong defensively, whether we're playing a back five or, two center backs or however we're doing it. That's ultimately where we're at. I mean, I think, like Jake said, it's hard to judge what we're doing based on 2 straight matches against City, because can we do that against, Villa or Newcastle, and play at that same sort of, mentality.
Yeah, and I would say that the Saints have been pretty good against teams like this in the past, if we set up in this manner, right? Like, even under Pellegrino, like we weren't terrible if we chose to set up and just defend all day. But the problem is can we turn that around and go forward? And that's been the issue for every manager that we've had, since Koeman, I would say. But a couple of changes to the team sheet. McCarthy comes in for Gunn after the kind of mess that was Leicester City. Stevens in for Yoshida, and then Armstrong comes into the fold as well. Probably because Højbjerg's got to drop to left back, and therefore he comes into in the midfield. And I thought all 3 subs, or all 3 changes, I should say, were performed admirably. I wouldn't say that any of them were particularly bad in their positions. I thought that they all kind of earned their keep, especially Jack Stevens. And granted, it's only 2 matches, but I mean, that's a pretty impressive performance yesterday at the center of that defense when we're coming off of a game where we got torn apart by Leicester City.
Yeah, I feel like the changes, again, we just defended the whole game, but I think the changes made were appropriate ones. Yesterday was kind of my realisation that Jack Stephens isn't actually a terrible defender if all he has to do is defend deep. I recall I was at Anfield when we beat Liverpool in the League Cup semi-final, and we got absolutely hammered all game. And if you recall, Shane Long scored in the last minute to make it 2-0 over 2 legs. But Stephens was brilliant that game, and it was similar in that if his back is essentially against our goal, he'll win most things in the air, and it's all, it was such no-nonsense defending yesterday. The amount of times I saw Valerie or Højbjerg or any of our centre-halves boot it out to Rose as soon as they got the chance. Stephens looks comfortable in that sort of defensive mode. I think Vestergaard also looked comfortable in that kind of defensive mode because we didn't have a high line. He didn't have to run back, and his pace was never really all that exploited. As for the other changes, as you say, I think Armstrong was a necessity because Højbjerg moved to left back, and I think Højbjerg actually did a good job out of position. Armstrong also has a bit more legs than the rest of our central midfield, so I guess maybe he was kind of being treated hopefully as an additional outlet to Redmond and Ings, but obviously we were so camped out in our own half that never really materialised, although it was his shot which led to our goal. And as for Alex McCarthy, I was always of the opinion I'd prefer to see Gunn in goal, because I've never been overly won over by McCarthy's abilities, but I think it's the right decision at this point. I don't think Gunn, who certainly wasn't totally at fault for the majority of the Leicester goals, but I just think the way things were trending with him, it wasn't positive. So I think McCarthy deservedly had his spot in goal, and he didn't have that much to do in reality because our defenders did a lot of the work for him. So I didn't have any qualms with the selection choices Ralph made. I feel like tactically he got it right in terms of the most we could have expected. I mean, we were 1-0 up, and looked like getting something from the game. So that's more than I would have expected before the match had started.
I'll say that the City had 26 shots, we had 3, but both goalkeepers had the same number of saves, which just shows that a lot of City's shots were off target and things like that. But I mean, and a lot of them, even if they weren't off target, they were blocked or whatever. I was just going to go real quickly back to the center backs that you were talking about. Because one of the big criticisms of Vestergaard was that he's been terrible in the air, and he is, he's a giant. And so what is he doing? But I think you saw what these defenders are really capable of doing. And I would say that Bednarak of the 3 center backs yesterday had the worst game, because I think he's the best kind of at probably playing the ball, even though he's made some mistakes this season. But both Vestergaard and Stephens each had 4 aerial duels won. The combination of them, Vestergaard had 17 clearances, Bednarak 12, Stephens 15. So they were definitely just no nonsense, like you said, defending, and it was I wouldn't say it was a joy to watch, but it was nice to see the guys putting their bodies on the line. You saw blocks going in from Romeu and Armstrong, and people sliding in front of things. That's kind of what we all expected, or I guess we needed to see. I wouldn't say expected, but needed to see from the team after what had happened. But Alan, did any of the changes to you stand out as something that you feel worth mentioning, or anybody in particular that kind of stand out to you as being especially deserving of praise?
I thought it was surprising that Jack Stephens was in the squad. He scored on the weekend or in midweek, and he played fairly well defensively. But I mean, I was surprised just the fact that he's been a part of the subs like the last couple of weeks, but he's hardly seen any action, playing wise. So I was pleasantly surprised, but I thought he did all right. It just seems like you say, we can win the aerial duel, we can make the clearances, but then defensively, you just break down other ways, and it's like we can only do 2 to 3 things, or week to week, as opposed to all 3, and then that's where the goals come from. And I thought the back line played played quite well for the majority. I mean, all but bar the two goals. I thought Højbjerg was good left back. Obviously, we're really struggling without Bertrand, but I mean, what's he given us that Højbjerg really hasn't or didn't give us yesterday? So the only one that was surprising was Stevens. I didn't think he was going to keep his spot. I thought it was just like a midweek change.
Yeah.
But that was probably the only one. I'm just glad they didn't put Danso or whatever at left back.
Let's see. I thought I almost would have preferred that. And I can say that nothing that I said this week on any of the Manchester City like YouTube channels or anything was correct. The lineup was wrong. I mean, I put Yoshida in the match day kind of edit that I do for the Southampton page and for me. And so it's like, nothing I could have said this week could have been more wrong, which is awesome.
Do you think it's quite harsh that Yoshida was dropped?
I think it is, because I think that if you look at that squad, who's our senior player right now?
Yeah, well,
McCarthy?
Yeah. We're seriously lacking that overall as it is, yeah.
Yeah, and it's just, I think that's what I said in that number podcast, it's like we don't have a legitimate captain, and we've got Højbjerg, trying out there with the armband, but it's like, is he a legitimate captain that's, is he actually leading the team in that type of manner as opposed to, something that like Stephen Davis did or
right.
Lallana did when he was there, things like that. It's just, that was my question to them was do we don't really have a leader? And Yoshida's kind of that senior guy.
Yeah. I think that in terms of Pierre captaining the team, I would say that if you think back to like when Bertrand had the armband there for a while, it was still Højbjerg who was kind of getting all over people on the field and organizing things and doing that. And I think that's what got him the armband, and I think a lot of fans were calling for it as well, because he was a guy that was trotting out there after tough defeats and getting in front of the camera. And I mean, we forget he's 24. Like he's not some senior player. Like we said, he's not 28. He's not like he's still learning a lot. And he's a great player. And obviously willing to do whatever the manager asks. And I think all of those things kind of go towards like, you're the captain. But I think if you look around at some of the other guys who captain other squads, and maybe it's not even that big of a deal, maybe we just make too much of it, but like, you think that maybe there's something there that's missing, and maybe that thing is just maturity. But would Yoshida, a guy who this is going to sound harsh, but like, maybe he should be the third or fourth center back. Like, I don't think he should be starting for us week in, week out. Not that he's not a great servant, not that he doesn't come in and do a great job when he's there, but like that's not top half of the Premier League quality center backs, right? Like I think if Yoshida's there and maybe a bit harsh to drop him after the Leicester City match, but I think when I posted the picture for this week, I think Glenn Delcourt commented and said like I'd be surprised if he starts based on his performance specifically in the Leicester City match, and I didn't clue in on it enough or watch him close enough to know how many of those goals were his fault. I just got really, really frustrated with what was happening, and decided this is just a complete capitulation on our part, but maybe that is his fault, and maybe as the senior guy in the back, like you don't get to do that and then stay.
The other question I have, though, is bear in mind Kevin Danso was signed as, a potential centre-half for us.
Right.
Does Ralph actually rate him? Because at this point, he obviously had some fitness concerns when he first joined. He was eased in, he got the red card against United, and then again was sort of eased in off the bench. But we've seen him play at left and right back, centre-half on occasion, but probably more at fullback. Have we signed the right player? I know he's only on loan, but it looks like, bearing in mind how bad our defence was against Leicester, regardless of what you think about Stevens, Yoshida, Vestergaard, or whoever, Danso still isn't being seen as a potential replacement for any of these. So I'm wondering if he is the player we thought we signed.
I'm thinking the same thing about Adams, and you could extend that to Adams at the front, because he had a good run of starts to begin the year, and then obviously he was dropped for, to rest, quote unquote, and we've not really seen him bar, the last 6 minutes of a match.
Yeah.
And it's, or, when we're down 9-0 already and we've just not seen him. And it's like, is he, kind of bunched in with that Danso? Is he someone that we've signed and is just not the player for whatever reason? Whether it's him, whether it's how he's being managed, how he's put through training, is he not the guy that we thought he was going to be when we signed him as well?
I think with Adams, at least you could say Ralph did give him those that run of starts. I mean, he was starting ahead of Ings. If they weren't playing together, it was Adams picked over Ings. And Ings is pretty much our sole goal scorer at the moment. Right. So I see why Adams has been dropped, and he might be low on confidence at this time, which I'd be shocked if there aren't more players severely lacking in confidence after the Leicester game in particular, but every other game pretty much. I don't know. Adams, I think he's just more struggling for form, whereas Danso's not really been given the chance from the very get-go. At least you could say with Adams, he had a pre-season with us. He was prolific in pre-season. We know that counts for very little. We signed Danso on the last day of the transfer window, which was just totally unnecessary. It's not as if we were haggling over fees or anything like that. We got him on loan, so how much could we really be paying for that? But Danso, for whatever reason, just at least isn't favoured by Ralph as the centre-back we thought he would be. I mean, we signed him knowing that Augsburg played him as a holding midfielder last season. Ralph, in the press, said that we're signing him on the basis that we think he could do a job at centre-half, and he's not really been given that chance. So, but bear in mind how bad our defence is. It's a bit worrying that he's not even being considered as, a solution to quite a big problem.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's two center halves that could play center half, but also might do a job at holding midfielder, which, people say that about Jack Stevens quite a bit, or we're saying that about Jack Stevens. But, it is a little bit worrying in terms of what we did. And just to make an unnecessary dig at our own club, on your comment of how much we could be paying because he's on loan. Like, remember who was there when we signed him on loan. So God knows how much we could be paying. It might be more than most transfer fees for small European clubs, but who knows? I hope not. I hope I'm wrong. Hopefully I feel better.
Too, yeah. It's a good
I feel
point
better
though.
about that, and then I will clean that out of the episode, but probably not, based on how I'm feeling recently.
Is he supposed to be a loan and then we have to buy him?
I don't think we have to buy him, but I think we may have, if I recall anyway. I mean, no one ever really gets the facts. But I feel like we at least have an agreement. If we want to buy him, we can.
I think there's an option to buy, but it's not like Danny Ings where we were buying him. It just wasn't going to happen until the following season. That's my understanding. Once again, we could be wrong, but let's talk about our goal a little bit, because early on in the match, obviously, as you would have expected, City kind of all over us, kind of coming forward and, managed to put a couple of shots together for them, possession clearly in their favor. But then we get a chance where Armstrong finds himself alone kind of at the top of the box, takes a touch, puts in what I would consider to be a fairly tame shot, something that should have been saved by Ederson, but he spills it, and of all people, James Ward-Prowse on the mark to hammer it home and give us the lead. And at that point, I ironically tweeted, just like we predicted, James Ward-Prowse gives us the lead, and here we go. But I mean, how surprised were you when we scored a goal that early? And perhaps was it too early for us to do that and then try to set up shop and defend for 75 minutes?
I think it's any goal you ever score against City, I don't think is ever too early. Any goal that we ever score particularly is never too early, because we're not very, we're not goal scoring all over the place really. But I thought it was a deserved lead. But then I think we just, obviously the game flips when we score, and it's, I think going in, I don't think we expected or intended to score that early. I guess we don't really know what the plan is coming out from the dressing room, from Ralph, what he said. But I just thought it was never too early to score. It's just how do we respond? And I thought we responded really well going up.
Yeah, Saints against City, if you can get a goal, I guess it's true. Like maybe we did score a bit too early, and then we had to obviously set up shop after that. But just to get a goal against City and to take the lead against City, I'd take that at any time of the game. I think, maybe it did force us into defending too early, but we did defend admirably for a very long time. I think regardless of our defence playing well, there still are those chinks in our armour, and City can get us. I remember the first season we were back in the Premier League. I was at the Etihad when City had just won the championship. We just got promoted. We were 1-0 down, took a 2-1 lead in the second half, both goals being scored, I think about 5 minutes apart. And we were leading from behind in the second half and still capitulated to lose 3-2. So I think, just to get a goal, I was grateful for. And I think Ward-Prowse did very well to get in the position to tap that in. As you said, it was a very tame shot, and Ederson should have dealt with it. But just to have that sort of wherewithal and awareness to get in that right position is positive. Ward-Prowse actually scored a couple of goals like that last season after Ralph joined. So I think that's positive. We need goal scorers all across the pitch. We can't rely on Ings because, while I do like Ings, I just don't think the service is there. So we need as many different goal scorers as possible. So that's a positive. And the fact that we did, we made City actually, they had to really fight for those 3 points. So I think the fact that we took the lead early was good. It's a positive for sure anyway. People
have been calling for Ward-Prowse to be dropped for how many matches now? And it's like, yeah, he may not, always be the most consistent performer out there, but he's at least, he's, I wouldn't say he's always impacting the game as well, but it's the same thing. It's like we call for players to be dropped, and it's like, how many players we've already dropped our keeper, and it's like, how many can we actually physically drop before we're just, trotting under 23s out there? And it's like, he's picked a really good time to score a goal for us. And hopefully that just gives him some confidence, because he must know that he's not been playing to the level that he was at last year. I think there's a lot of people in the squad that are like that. Bednarik being one of them, and maybe just being in a competitive match where they're actually, fighting for 3 points, fighting for, their job at this point. Who's going to get replaced next if we keep shifting people out? But it's one of them. It's good to see him score, I think, because I think it's going to hopefully go a long way for him.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And the thing is with Ward-Prowse, for years I thought he was absolutely terrible. And then last season he came on form, and I feel like he's a better player today than he was for a very long time, when a lot of Saints fans loved him being included in our first team. And also, as you said, like, how many players can we realistically drop? We know our squad's not up to much, particularly in central midfield. Just looking at the bench, we've got Gunn, Yoshida, Danso, Gineppo, Buffal, Long, Adams. That's 2 strikers, 2 wingers. Danso's meant to be a centre half, but who knows where he's meant to be playing? And Yoshida's another centre half. So, Stuart Armstrong is essentially being played in central midfield, and he's meant to be a winger. I think he could play central midfield, but he's not. It just goes to show how it's not as if we've got injuries in central midfield really impacting our first team selection in those positions. We just don't have them players. So I think Ward-Prowse, he has all the bells and whistles of this specialist set piece taker. Don't know if he offers a whole lot more, but last season he grabbed a fair few goals for us, and hopefully yesterday is a sign of things to come with him.
Well, let's just real quick. Ward-Prowse for Saints in the Premier League has 19 goals total in 204 appearances. 9 of those goals have come since Ralph has arrived at the club. So like he's playing a little bit further forward. He's probably playing better now than he has in a while, but still, and I'm guilty of it too. We criticize him for just not quite being enough. And I think for a long time, everybody was super happy that he was playing because he was an academy product. And that was definitely something that drew me to the team. Even when I first started watching, was like, I like the fact that players are coming through and playing and like, we're developing these guys and this is all great. But like, now he's probably, even if we're not 100% convinced by his pace or his ability to play it like right wing back if we need or whatever, sometimes the dead balls haven't been as great, but he's got more goals under Hasenhüttl than he does under anybody else. And he's probably playing the best he has. He's entering kind of the peak years of his career. So like asking for him to be dropped maybe in favor of Armstrong, just because we want somebody who's a bit more pacey or a bit more dynamic maybe. But like, I don't know if that's the move you make. But then again, it's hard to drop Højbjerg as the captain, and Romeu is the only holding midfielder we have, and we can't play with anybody else in the midfield because, we have to have 70,000 defenders behind the ball all the time. So like, you get in this weird situation of your choices are kind of limited, even if you're not 100% happy with some of the guys that are out there. But I just wanted to make that point about him, and I think a lot of people either you hate Ward-Prowse or you love him, and you're not allowed to be in between, which I think is a little bit ridiculous.
I'm pretty indifferent when it comes to Ward-Prowse.
Make a decision now, Alan.
So indifferent.
Me too. I mean, as I said, I used to I didn't rate him at all. I almost felt, especially when he was first on the scene, it was clear like he was always billed as a specialist set piece taker. I almost felt like his delivery was almost too good for our players to even attack. I'm indifferent because I think if he continued on the trajectory, he didn't have that second half of last season, I'd probably be one calling for him to be replaced. But like, short of putting maybe Callum Slattery in from the under-23s or something else, we just don't have. I don't know how it's got to this point, but we just don't have the squad to even change up our central midfield all that effectively. And I don't think he's necessarily the guiltiest of all parties within our midfield or within our team either. I think those goals have definitely helped him cement his place under Ralph, even if he hasn't been performing all that well this season. But I think I'm just hoping that his goal yesterday kind of kicked something else off within him. But I also think he's a player that's shown that he reacts well when the team's under the cosh. I mean, last season we needed him and his goals, and he was probably the only player that really stepped up under Ralph and took the reins in that regard with additional goal output. I just hope that's the same. I'm sure Ralph's absolutely got into the team this week, and if that's a sign of Ward-Prowse's reaction, and obviously it shouldn't take a 9-0 loss for players to really step up. But if he has stepped up as a result, that can only be a positive. And I don't really see an alternative anyway. So hopefully it'll just be positive things from Ward-Prowse in particular going forward. We need him, really.
I'd agree. And I guess let's move on a little bit to, we got to halftime ahead, and I think that was, there was some stat about Manchester City not losing very many games when they at halftime, and a lot of them were against us, which I just found to be kind of hard to believe, but I'm going to believe Opta Joe if they say so. So anyway, we get into the second half and we maintain the lead, and it's getting to the point where, I'm starting to think like we might actually win this, like it's gone from like how long until we concede, and I'm trying to bury that thought inside myself, but like going from that to going like we might actually get away with this, like we might actually do this would be huge. And the only downside would be that like Liverpool will be that much closer to winning the title, which I don't want. But then they do manage to score, and I'd been so impressed with how kind of organized the defense was, because that's been one of those things that we haven't done very well, and we've made individual errors. We've kind of come out and kind of broken our shape trying to do too much almost individually sometimes. And they stayed very committed, very compact, and forced Manchester City to put crosses into the box over and over and over. If you look at some of the heat maps for Manchester City, it's almost all down the wings, and these crosses are coming in and either being headed out, and then shots are coming back as a result, and we still have a chance to block them and all this stuff. But we do basically the same thing. We have a pretty organized back line. I put an image in here in our notes on the thing, but you can see Aguero finds that very small space. It's not even 3 yards or so that he has to operate in, and Walker's cross just happens to find him, and it's one touch and by the keeper, and it's so kind of deflating when that happens. But even though the fans will say that City had it coming, like they were there, they were taking those shots, but this Aguero hadn't looked good all day. But the cross comes in, like low fizz cross from Walker, and in terms of that was the opposite of what had been happening, which was everything was coming in the air. But when that goal goes in, for you guys, is it all right? Now it's time to just hold that lead, or do you think like now we're in trouble and we're not getting anything, or like what was your kind of feeling as that's happening?
I'll let Jake go first.
Cheers, Alan. So getting to about nearing 70 minutes and thinking we might actually get away with this one is always worrying, because usually that's when things capitulate and things don't work out the way you want them to. And I actually thought at the time, so I think right before seeing the goal, Stevens made a bit of an error. Our defensive line was actually a lot less deep for a change. I can't even remember how it came about, but he basically misjudged a header over the top and we were in trouble. And I was like, is this a sign of our defence starting to weaken, concentration starting to fall? And about 2 minutes later, City score. For as well as we did defending wise, and just looking at the photo of the goal being set up that you shared with us, Matt, it reminds me, so Højbjerg's actually in the penalty area rather than closing Walker down. Mm-hmm. And we invited plenty of crosses in and dealt with them well throughout, but even in that moment at the time it was happening, I was like, why has he got all this space? Because he could basically take aim. As many bodies as we do have in there, City have matched them in terms of attackers as well. And we gave him almost too much time. He essentially fired in a shot. There wasn't a whole lot of grace to his delivery into the area, but he fizzed. I mean, every other thing they attempted in terms of crossing in the air didn't work. So I guess they had a plan B, and he fired in a low cross, and Aguero, as he always is in the right position, especially against Southampton. I think it said in the game it was his 8th goal and 13 appearances against Saints. He's in the right position. The ball across was hit so hard, all he has to do was get a foot on it and direct it in, and went through McCarthy's legs. All happened basically too quick for any of us to anticipate. So I guess you could say, in hindsight, it was coming. If that didn't go in, you the opposite way, you'd say, Saints were expertly defending everything City thrown away. So it's just one of them. It was deflating. I don't think I saw Southampton's heads drop, like you perhaps would expect, because they put so much effort into defending that lead for so long. But it felt inevitable to me, at least. I wasn't overly surprised by it, especially seeing Aguero being the one to score.
Yeah, I'm kind of jumping on that same sort of bandwagon in terms of, wasn't surprised who scored, but I think I'm surprised in the manner in which they scored, just for the fact that we had done so well with dealing with crosses into the box. But I think what we've learned from going all the way back to, unfortunately, Leicester, is that's what they did to us. Was I think teams realized that if they use the wide channels and just pump balls into the box, at some point one is going to, because if you look at the picture, obviously the viewers can't see the picture, but just the way we're set up, we have the numbers in the box, but they're not in the right position. They're almost too defensive. They're just giving space to I mean, if it doesn't fall for Aguero, it falls for that Silva behind them, Bernardo. I mean, they've got three guys right there that, I mean, because Bednarek's not close to Bernardo Silva, Valeri's not close to Sterling. So, I mean, any one of those three guys could have easily finished that off if it's not Aguero. And I think that the formula that teams are using against us is, if they chip at us long enough, they're eventually going to we're going to be caught out sleeping. And I think that's what we saw there. I mean, obviously we expert defending until that point, and it took just one cross, and that's what happens when you play against the top six teams or teams vying for the title. I mean, that's all they need is one shot.
Yeah, and this is one of those instances where we weren't as kind of organized as we had been all game, and part of it was I think the ball came back the other way towards us very quickly. You can see, I think what Højbjerg's doing is hoping Walker's offside in that, and he barely keeps the ball. He's
hoping
going.
that the ball's gone out, I think, because he's onside. He's definitely onside when the ball's played.
Yeah, that was it. It looked like it went over the
line. Okay.
Yeah, that's what I think it was. But that's what he's calling for. But I mean, I've not seen a replay or whatever.
It was in. It wasn't out.
Was it in? Yeah, I thought it was.
You can click on the picture, but it won't change. It's just going to stay there. It won't play it back for you, unfortunately. And then I guess moving on towards the second goal, or there are one other thing. So let's talk about the goal, and then we'll talk about some of the other things that I thought were fantastic about the game. Before you have to go, Alan. So the second goal comes in. It's a cross. McCarthy comes for it. Doesn't get enough on it. Walker, of course, is there. He gets a foot on it. It goes in. That's 2-1. City react like they've just won the league. And you can see that hurts because these guys have put in all of this effort. I mean, their bodies have to be bruised and battered after blocking that many shots. I think there would have been something like 20 shots were blocked or something, or 24 shots were blocked by the guys on our team. So like that's a lot of sacrifice. And then for that to happen, for it to happen that way is deflating. But if you would have asked us at the beginning of the game, hey, you lose 2-1, you put in a good performance, would you be happy with that? I think a lot of us would have said yes, but it never feels that way once it's all, said and done and over with, right?
I'm in the camp that I'm not a huge fan of saying, oh, we deserve something from that, because if we deserve something from it, then we would have gotten it. So I'm always a bad stickler for that. I always play the bad guy in that regard, and it's good, I think, because at the end of the day, we've not gained any points. We're still in the same position we were, when we started the match. Obviously, we put in a good performance to at least test the champions. But I wouldn't go as far as to say that, if we deserve something, then we would have gotten it. But, it's a much better performance than we had against Leicester. So I'll give you that one.
Yeah, for me, I remember in the build-up to the second goal, to me it looked like Angelino, the left-back, was offside. And just because we've been bailed out by VAR so many times of late, I was kind of hoping it would come to our rescue again, and it never did. It was, I don't know, again, as soon as it went 1-0, I just assumed we'd end up losing it. And while I do take some positives from the performance, I'm never satisfied with a loss, regardless of the opposition. And I think I'm almost more disappointed because we were close to getting something than I would be if we just got beat 3-0 and City were 3 up at half time. But there are positives to gain. All I wanted to see was the team actually fight. And I felt like we saw that on Saturday. We didn't roll over. We did sit back and defend, but that's how, a team of our standard and caliber, I feel like that was appropriate for that match. It's a shame. It was another sloppy goal. McCarthy didn't have a whole lot to do all game, and he should have got a lot more on his. It wasn't even a punch. He kind of slapped it or tipped it straight into the path of Walker. He should have done more. I appreciate there's plenty of bodies in the penalty area, including a 6'7" Danish centre back, so it's probably easier said than done. But I felt like one of the few occasions he was really called upon, he literally flapped under the pressure. So I don't know. As I said, I was never the biggest fan of McCarthy. I don't think it's like we shouldn't go on his back too much for that. A game of such relentless pressure, there are going to be some errors. We saw it with the first goal. As I said, I felt like Walker was afforded too much space. We saw it in the second as well. I think that's just the way things are. If you score early and you're relying on defending against a world-class team for 80 minutes or so, there's going to be a couple of errors in there. Unfortunately, City are the kind of team that are good enough to seize upon them errors.
Yeah, I would say that the errors, when we make them, we're not generally good enough to put a stop to it, and McCarthy did make another error, albeit it didn't wind up costing us, but it did give Manchester City a set piece just inside the area, from a simple back pass where Bednarak, we have a dead ball, we pass it back to him, and maybe it's not the right play because I think it's Aguero or somebody is pressing him, pressing McCarthy, but McCarthy chooses to pick the ball up, which you can't do. Like I know that, and I'm, an American, and I know that. So and I'm not a goalkeeper. But it was a little bit ridiculous. And you think about, we've had goalkeeping errors and people have been calling for McCarthy to go back in. And I think this is maybe a little ranty, but this is one of the things that we do is as soon as somebody makes a mistake, we bring up, the other guy that we dropped for him is better. And granted, I'll give the McCarthy didn't really do all that much wrong, I think, to get dropped, but we bought Gunn for, a significant amount of money. We want him to develop, and the only way he gets better is if you put him in. And maybe, and you leave it up to Ralph to go okay, you just need a moment out of the way. You don't need, you conceded 9 to Leicester. You don't need to go back in against City. But we can't really say that McCarthy had a huge game. He made a couple of big saves. But in those couple of moments where we really needed him to be there, he wasn't. And does that mean he needs to be dropped? No, not necessarily. Everybody's going to make mistakes, especially when you're probably switched on and mentally drained by that point. Even if you're not actually making the save, you're still moving your body towards that space and directing traffic and doing all this other stuff. So there's a lot of things to consider. But I would say that you mentioned the one time we needed him, he wasn't there. I would say that he almost cost us before that even. And so not ideal for us to have a goalkeeper doing that. But aside from that, I don't want to be totally negative about things because in the end, like you said, we lost. But there were a couple of things that I think are just worth mentioning. At one point, when we're ahead, our assistant coach, not Danny Roll, as they said in our coverage here, holds on to the ball, won't give it back to the Manchester City players and attempt to waste some time. And then so once City get ahead, Pep picks up the ball as it goes out of bounds and goes to hand it to him, which I just thought was it's both petty and childish, but also I can't not laugh at it, even though I desperately want us to get the ball back. And it's just one of those things where I don't know if you guys saw it in your coverage, but Hasenhüttl and Pep were arguing a little bit. The post-match coverage, Hasenhüttl said, I've seen him be a lot nicer than that. And so it wasn't a very kind of amicable game, but I guess it's high pressure, high stakes, and Pep has expectations for his team, and I don't know. What did you guys make of any of that? And also Pep playing ball boy, 30 or 40 yards outside the area. I can't find his heat map on who scored. They don't have it, but I imagine he'd be up and down the wing just as much as probably further forward than most of our fullbacks most of the day, honestly.
Pep's got some history with Saints, doesn't he? Do you remember he collared Nathan Redmond after we almost grounded out a draw against them?
Yeah.
He took it upon himself to, I believe he said he told Redmond he and his teammates can play a lot better than he did or something like that. So he obviously doesn't like it when Southampton come to the Etihad and defend most of the game. I don't think I've ever seen a bench of any team, let alone Saints, hold on to the ball to waste time. I guess it's a sign of our desperation, and I think Pep's reaction to that was a sign of I don't think he reacts to pressure all that well, at least not in a positive way. On the outside anyway, I'm sure he gets into his players plenty and they produce good results under pressure, but he seems to have lost his head a bit. And even after the game when did the customary handshake. There's definitely a few words exchanged between Pep and Ralph. And I mean, I wouldn't want to mess with Ralph, but Pep's just that sort of. He's got like a certain level of crazy, which I think most sort of geniuses have. And Pep is a petty guy, and it'll be interesting to see what the return fixture will be like if they'll resume any hostilities. Because I can't see Saints playing any other way, even if it was at home against a team like City.
No, I think when City come to town, it'll probably be a lot like that. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm just going to choose to laugh it off because it was all right.
Consider me, is it sadistic or masochist? Because I like when we play City. For some reason, I think it always brings out the best in us. Like, for some reason, we've always had, even if we've not gotten a result, I mean, I'm just contradicting myself saying, but it always tends to bring out a pretty decent performance from us when we play City. So I always wish that we could get something from it.
By and large, they usually do fight against City. I'll give you that.
Yeah.
Sure.
Well, we have a couple of questions we should answer here. And some of them are good and some of them are there. We have one here from Finley.Duke on Instagram, and he says, how old is Matt Letizia? Matt Letizia is 51 years old. That's that. Got one right.
Thanks for answering that one.
Nobody can do that. Here's one from ALCAPWN156. I don't know how to pronounce that or what it should be. But it says, any stock increases or decreases with our back line or our players in general coming out of this game? And I think that's actually a pretty decent question. But anybody, I guess, warrant another start based on this? I mean, I can think of our central defenders, Vestergaard and Stevens maybe had the best game that they've had in some time. But like, does that mean they should be in there going forward? Or do you think, when we're playing teams that aren't City and we're going to need to be a little bit different of a team, a different style, do you think that other people need to come in?
I think after seeing Stevens the last few games, I get another contradiction here. I mean, it's a surprise, but that he was still in the lineup. But I think he's one that it'll be interesting to see how he's handled in the next. We play Everton next, isn't it? So it'll be interesting to see how he's handled. As if is he going to keep his spot? Are we going to go back to Yoshida or what is? But he's one that's, I don't know if his stock has risen, but I think he's at least given Ralph maybe something to think about in terms of what he's shown over the last few matches. So you just have to keep him so rudimental. Like, he can't do anything that's out of his comfort zone. But that's the one I'm kind of looking forward to seeing, is how he's handled in the next coming fixtures, I'd say.
Totally agree. As I said before, I feel like Stevens is almost ready-made for games where we need to sit back and defend. As Alan said, anything where he's out of his comfort zone, if he has to touch the ball more than 2 or 3 times before passing it or clearing it, I'd be concerned. So I think his stock's raised and that he'll at least be considered as an option for those kind of games. I'd be a bit concerned against Everton, because I feel like if Everton's the kind of game, they're in the form that we should be looking to try and get a result from, which means we need to be playing on the front foot. They have plenty of suspicions about their squad as well. So I'd like to think we'd play a bit more proactively, and I don't think Stevens necessarily fits that mould, but he's definitely played himself into contention for other fixtures.
I guess last question here before we have to wrap this up a little bit, but the guys from the In That Number podcast, who Alan, you are quite familiar with, says, can we realistically keep defending like that against the likes of Everton and Arsenal? And I think we kind of established there, like, I don't expect us to go out and play in that manner again. And I think most of the fan base will understand how we set up yesterday against City. But if you do that against Everton, if you do that against some of these other teams, you're probably going to have some people that are quickly disappointed, But at the same time, if you're Ralph, you have to do what works. And if this is what works, if this is what gets us a result, even though it didn't in this case, that's the closest we've been to a result in some time. That's probably the best we've looked as a team, the most cohesive, I would say, maybe not best, but most cohesive that we've looked. If that's what you have to do, then that's what you have to do. But I would expect us to be a little bit different next week, like you said, looking to get a result against Everton in terms of taking it to them a little bit. But I mean, I guess who else in the league would you expect us to set up this way against? Would it just be City, Liverpool, maybe Arsenal? But I don't even know, because they're a bit of a disaster as well.
Yeah, I think the way I took that question is more on the whole. Can we keep defending like that? Can we have that same confidence against the likes of Everton? That's kind of how I took it, more so than.
Well, answer that, because that's more fun.
And I think. Yeah, that's one of those that remains to be seen, because we've not done it yet, I don't think. We did, what was it, Wolves? We drew Wolves, and then who else did we draw against recently? Because that's the only points we've gotten. And it's like, I think that's the way I've taken the question. And it remains to be seen, because we've not done it previously. So maybe we've built some confidence finally in the back line, whether it's the back four or a back five.
I hate to be devil's advocate, but while we did defend well for 70 minutes or so, we did still concede 2 goals and lose. So I feel like, in terms of the question, the way you looked at it, Matt, I feel like we'll defend in that sort of manner, or play in that manner against team. I think Liverpool, City, I think based on how they played against us, Chelsea as well, I think every other team, I'd be hoping that we play a lot more forward thinking, but we do need to shore up at the back, and the individual performances at the back were a marked improvement than against Leicester, and plenty of other games this season. So I hope that is a trend that continues. It's just everything depends on formation, the opponent, everything else. I just hope in general we just cut out the mistakes at the back, and as a result, we will see an improved defence. And I think yesterday was at least a step in that direction.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, guys, I hope we've done this justice. I mean, I've enjoyed this. Whether or not the listeners will, we'll find out.
It's open.
Yeah,
hopefully we're better than the.
Oh, I think so. God damn it! I'm about to cut that out. Oh man, because put it together and then I'll really be in trouble.
I love that.
But I don't know. But thank you guys for coming on, and I hope that we'll have to set up and do this again before too long. But thanks for coming on. And if anybody wants to follow along, they can do that at St. Mary's Musings. Alan, that will get them to mostly your tweets and stuff during the games, but you are at @A_Gunzy. Jake, you are at JJ Hughes, and the website is stmarysmusings.sbnation.com, and the time change means that my entire family is up, and so the dog is up, and everybody is great, and it's going to be a good day.
Yeah, thank you for having us on.
Thank you for having us both on. Try and do your best to avoid the wildfires.
Oh yeah, I'll be all right. We'll be fine. The only thing that may happen is our power may go out. That'll be the big thing if PG&E hasn't done a great job of keeping up with the maintenance, and so their kind of towers tend to set off sparks at some point and start fires, and that's not great. So they are rolling blackouts all around the state, trying to prevent that from happening.
Oh wow, okay.
That's crazy.
It's not a good look.
Wish you guys luck. Yeah,
but we're okay for now. I haven't seen my neighbor in I think going on a month now, because he's a firefighter. He's just been going from fire to fire, and so I say, I hope you're all right, and he's like, I'm fine. Like, this is all overtime. So just imagine 3 solid weeks of overtime for basically 24 hours a day. It's costing California a lot, but he's going to be happy when he gets back.
I thought that was going to take a really dark turn. I haven't seen my neighbor in a month, and I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
That's the other show we do, is like a murder mystery show, but my wife's in charge of that one, not me.
Oh, okay.
But anyway, all right, guys, thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.
And that does it for this week's episode of the Southampton Delivery Podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope you've enjoyed it. And special thanks this week goes out to the guys from St. Mary's Musings, who you can follow on Twitter at St. Mary's Musings, or you can get Jake directly at JJHughes_, or you can get Alan, no relation to Angus Gunn, at @A_Gunsy. He'll be changing his name officially soon, I have no doubts. If Twitter's not your thing, you just want to go straight to the website, you can do that too at stmarysmusings.sbnation.com. Or alternatively, you can go to southamptondelivery.com, which is this show's website. And from there, you can click the link to go directly to St. Mary's Musings. It just depends on how many clicks or types you want. I don't know. You figure it out. If you would like to follow this show on Twitter or Instagram, you can do that. We are at SFCDELL_IVERY. We're also on Facebook at facebook.com/SFC Delivery. There are links to all of those, like I said, at southamptondelivery.com, where you can also get links to the show on various audio platforms so you can subscribe so you make sure you don't miss future episodes. The show is available on iTunes, Stitcher, Acast, Google Play, TuneIn Radio, or wherever else you listen to podcasts. If you're not sure how to do it, head to the website or send me a message. I'll do my best to get back to you. My inbox right now has some messages in it. I am getting through them. Be patient with me. I promise I'm trying. When you go to the website, one of the other things you can do is sign up to receive the weekly newsletter. It's infused with some humor. It tries to provide some analysis, but mostly will keep you up to date with things that are going on both with the show and with the club, and we hope to make you laugh in the process. The show would not be possible without the partners of the show. The logo is designed by Matt Beeling of the We Are Southampton page, and the Southampton page on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook is where you should go for all of your Southampton FC news and needs. The podcast only comes out once a week. The newsletter only comes out once a week. There's a lot of stuff that happens in between, so give the guys at the Southampton page a follow. Really do appreciate that. And for those of you who are wondering what else I do with my time, in addition to being a dad, a teacher, and a husband, we also have a small following of people over at patreon.com/SFC Delivery, and they get extra stuff. So they get my extra time. I hope that you understand that. If you would like to be a part of that, whether it's be involved in the Discord chat that we have that's just for Patreon members, or maybe even get the extra podcast episode once a month, some of those guys get, you can do that. But that's totally up to you. Okay? So that's it for this week. We'll be back next week after the Everton match. And until then, remember that together, we march on.